Hey everybody, Danny and I are here at MOAC, Missouri Annual Conference.
Yeah.
And what we've been doing is we've been sitting in this chapel media booth and inviting people in. And our recording lasted a whole hour, so we're going to break it into two parts. So this first part, you're going to see us talk to two different people, really great conversations. And then the second episode, you're going to see two more conversations.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I really hope you enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm excited to dig in. And I'm going to do this. We don't do this often. I'm going to do a little ad here. If you want to start a podcast or you're looking at creative work, check out Chapel Media. They're doing great stuff for us.
I really hope the logo is in the shot right now.
If it's not, Dustin will put it there. Actually, Dustin, put it over our faces.
No, put it over Danny's face. Okay.
I like that.
So anyway, enjoy these conversations.
Embrace the journey.
No, that's at the end.
Oh, sorry. Emily.
Danny.
We're here.
Not in our typical setting.
Not in our typical setting. Episode 52.
Oh my gosh, happy 1 year. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. And what's more Deconstruction Zone than picking a new studio to record in?
Every few episodes.
Every few episodes.
We were getting too consistent. I think it was unsettling everyone.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to have, I think we'll have a couple episodes in a row that'll come out. We'll be recording here. They're going to look a little differently, but this one, it's our year one. And I thought would be interesting is to talk to pastors about deconstruction. So right now, you and I, we're at the St. Charles Convention Center. There's 800 plus pastors and lay people gathered here from across Missouri, United Methodist, doing kind of like our business of the year.
Yeah.
And I was like, what would be more interesting than talking to just a few of them to get some interesting perspectives on life, faith, and the whole deconstruction movement?
So are lay people just like allowed to come?
Yeah. So, I mean, certain people have voting rights. So if you look around, and not everyone will see this, but like I have a yellow name tag. That means I'm an ordained elder or deacon. Red people are licensed local pastors, or red is lay people. Green is licensed local. Black is like provisional. And they all come with, those are to like market, like who can vote, who can speak, who can all that kind of stuff.
Who can vote?
So
anyone but lay people?
Yellow name tags can vote. Lay people can vote.
Are you freaking kidding me?
And licensed people can vote, but provisional people can't. So it's actually really interesting. But like almost everyone can speak, but not everyone can. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
Okay, that's just like, so it looks very similar to the Presbyterian.
Yeah, your experience with that, yeah.
GA, General Assembly, which is similar, which is not just Missouri, but it's like all over the country.
Yeah.
And it was in St. Louis, and like, it's just.
Is this giving you triggering feelings?
Honestly, a little bit, but it's also really different. Even just like hearing you talk about voting rights, like soothed me a little bit.
Yeah,
just
the
because
vibe's different.
The vibes are different. I remember when I was at PCA, General Assembly, this one woman was like, Emily, you should come over and like help me do laundry sometime. And my pastor was like, that's the only thing you'll be asked to do here. And it was kind of a joke, but kind of made me sad.
But also like the truest joke.
Right.
It was funny because
and I was like,
true.
And then there was a point where like all the women went to brunch and all the men went to go vote. And I was like, I just hate this.
Like, I'd rather go vote than go to brunch.
Right. Or just they were like, you can technically go, but you can't vote.
That's interesting. Well, this has a different vibe, though. It comes with its own interesting sets of issues, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk to other pastors, because I think our topic has a lot of different people's thoughts on it, and I want to get some perspective. So if you're cool...
By that, do you mean deconstruction?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So if you're cool with that, I want to like have some friends just kind of stream in. And
I think that's great.
Some people I don't know, hopefully, will hop on. But I got our first friend, so I'll introduce him.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
If you had to predict, do you think that pastors are going to be generally pretty pro deconstruction here?
So there are two questions. I think the people that come to sit down with us might generally lean towards pro.
That's fair.
But it's pretty 50-50.
Okay.
But not like people are like it's a negative sin. Like a lot of people don't understand it. There's misinformation.
Yeah.
Which is why I want to talk to you. I'm hoping we have people that don't agree with us. Like not just all people are like, oh, this thing's the dopest thing ever. Like I want people to be like, you're leading people to hell, and I want to talk to you about why they think that.
Who's the guy that said that to you at the event? Is he here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But maybe. So, all right, I'm gonna get my buddy Chris.
Yeah, get your buddy Chris.
All right.
So this is Chris Abel, Emily, and also to people watching. So Chris and I work together at a church called The Gathering here in St. Louis, United Methodist Church. Chris is now a lead pastor of a church in Blue Springs, Missouri.
Yes.
So why don't you just quickly introduce yourself, who you are, what you're doing, anything that's interesting about you, and then after that, what do you know about deconstruction? When you think about it, what comes to your mind?
All right. Well, I'm Chris. Yeah, I worked with Danny and then have been part of these church plants, and then I now work at a church that's 151 years old. And so it's totally different helping take an old church and help them adapt to the year 2023, right? Than it is to start something new for people that are younger.
Yeah, we're almost on different sides of the spectrum in that regard,
It's
right?
totally, yes, it's absolutely, and it's different language, it's different pace. But the fun fact about me is I met Buzz Aldrin in an elevator once. I rode an elevator with him, and I said, he got in the elevator, and I said, I hope we can stand the G's, and he ignored me.
Is Buzz Aldrin the guy on the moon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like,
sorry.
Is that what you were trying to whisper to me?
That's what I was like. Is it the moon guy?
He's the moon guy. Yeah, he punched someone once for saying that the moon landing didn't happen. So conspiracy
if I went
theories
to
have
the
happened
moon and
for
someone said that, I would probably also punch them.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Or if you were leading a like generations long hoax, you'd punch him for trying to poke a hole in your thing, right?
It's probably what some people would say about Jesus.
Ooh, what's happening? All right.
Not that I'm saying that.
So, Chris.
Sorry, I made it weird.
No, you made it. It was great. So, deconstruction. Like, first question I have for you is like, does your congregation talk about this? And then, what do you think? Like, when you think about it, what do you think about the movement as a whole?
I never use the word deconstruction because I don't think a lot of folks would even understand what we're talking about.
For sure.
It's become a buzzword for a lot of people recently in the last couple of years, but not my congregation.
Okay.
But I talk about it all the time because my story is that I was an atheist. I went to an Assemblies of God college and left as an atheist and then spent years searching for something more. I mean, like I was a deconstructionist before it was cool.
Yeah, before we had a podcast on.
Back when it was just lonely, isolating, no podcast or internet to really encourage you. Like that's what I went through.
Yeah.
And so that's been my experience. So I share my story all the time, and I try to preach and talk to people as if in any given Sunday, somebody might be in the room that's completely deconstructed their faith. And so I don't assume that anybody's actually religious in my congregation.
That's good.
So that I'm talking to the person that might come in. And I think that in itself is what helps folks who aren't familiar with deconstruction actually become familiar with it, is because their pastor every week, they're getting used to me talking to somebody who's in the room who might have doubts, who might have have a bad encounter with religion. So that's how it kind of shows up in my congregation.
So my question for you is, how do you think your faith would be different today if you hadn't gone through a deconstruction phase? Like, how is your faith maybe more robust or strong because of your deconstruction phase? Or is it weaker?
No. That's a great question. I never, ever, ever wanted to be a pastor or thought I'd be a pastor. In fact, I pushed religion away. I just wanted truth. Like that was the thing. I was my North Star. I just wanted, what is true? And I didn't want any of the BS. I didn't want anything that just made me feel good. I didn't want to, just be smiley all the time. No matter what truth was, I wanted truth. And so I really considered everything. I considered lots of different religions. I considered different branches of Christianity. I considered atheism. I mean, I legitimately considered it all.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that brought me back was just, I encountered some it was C.S. Lewis's book, Mere Christianity. Have you ever read that?
Actually, I've read other C.S. Lewis, but not that one.
It's real dense, and I went slow, but I got converted back to the Christian faith through a book, and then started getting involved in a church community, which was really awkward and hard and strange. But to answer your question, at that church community, I was asked if I would preach, and I preached about my doubt journey, and I felt like very self-conscious, as if I was the only person that had doubts. Yeah. And then when I actually was up there and I was sharing my doubts, and every eye in the room was locked onto me, and you could see how much it meant to everybody. And it was the realization of, my doubts and my faith journey haven't made me an outsider. Everybody actually has a little bit of this, and I'm the first person they've heard actually say it. And then that was my call to ministry. I was like, I got to do this. Yeah. Like, so it was.
You guys are like kindred spirits.
That sounds a lot like my story. Really? Yeah, for sure.
Right here, yes.
Yeah, I'll say I'm like watching over your shoulder as you're talking, and like the grin on her face is like this one of like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like, I feel like the first time I preached at the Well, I told Danny, I was like, but I'm not 100% sure like where I'm at, and I'm going to be pretty open. Like, I remember I preached on prayer, and I was like, I don't really know, guys. Yeah. But I like still talked about it. And he said, like, you said people came up to you and you're like, there's something so powerful about Emily's like honesty, and I've never heard the gospel said that way.
And you may not know this, so we obviously just podcast together, but Emily has gone in phases. Like she was kind of our primary second teacher at the Well. It took a little bit of a break, but now like stepping back in to like preaching and teaching at the Well. And so like pretty involved in like what we're doing. Even when you weren't involved.
I dabbled in atheism for sure.
Yeah.
I was pretty close.
Yeah. I would say like if you're being honest, like you're still like picking,
I'm not
picking
like
and choosing,
I know
but you're
exactly
dipping
what
in
I
and out of
think.
things.
Yeah. I'm still in like when you said like the pursuit of truth, that hit really hard, because I think at the end of the day, like I just think that's what we want. And I think deconstruction is honestly just this wholehearted pursuit of truth, even if you find it outside the bounds of the church.
Yeah.
And as Emily would say, truth is personal.
Well, and then that's what
we talked about that on last.
I think
inside
that's
jokes.
what. Oh, okay. Sorry.
You wouldn't get it, Chris.
I wouldn't get it.
You listen to the podcast.
Yeah, maybe listen to the pod. I'm kidding.
Well, I love that because if I think people can tell the difference between someone who's selling something to you. Like, this is across the board anywhere, right? With like if somebody's selling a vacuum cleaner to you and they're just trying to make this sale, most of us can tell, right?
You're nothing but a silver-tongued snake oil salesman.
But if somebody's like, no, for real, I sell this because I believe in this freaking vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like this vacuum cleaner.
Yeah,
this vacuum cleaner will change your life. You could feel that, and you're more likely to buy it from that person, right? Yeah. So, they might not be accurate, and that's I think, challenge. But I think that's what's the problem with ministry today. So many churches are selling you something they don't believe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like you can tell it's a sales pitch. And nobody wants the sales pitch. We can all smell it.
Hear me out on this.
Yeah.
I'm big into analogies.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just keep diving into this vacuum analogy.
Yeah, go.
What if, like, I also don't think it's very helpful to be like, this is all the data about the vacuum. Maybe it is to somebody. But I think what people actually want to hear is like, you know what? I don't know everything about vacuums, but this is my experience with vacuums.
Yeah.
Not that
specific vacuum.
So
not that truth
somebody
is
could be like,
solely hinged on
I
experience.
thought Roomba was going to be my solution, and then it ran over my dog's poop, and then it rubbed it into the carpet, and I was like, how am I ever going to get this out?
That's more compelling
and I bought
to me.
this vacuum, and the Well 3000 actually got up the Roomba poop, and the Roomba, I had to deconstruct the.
Like that's more compelling to me than you being like, and there's like how many battery power. I'm like, I don't care.
Whoa, it does 17,000 rotations per second.
I just feel more ostracized by that.
Yeah. Thank you for that vacuum data. That's very compelling.
Right. You know what I'm saying though?
Yeah.
Well, so Chris, you're one of my best friends, so I love every time I get a chance to hang out with you.
Why have I never heard about Chris then?
It's true. No, Danny's in my wedding, so and then I bought him a 1 square foot of land in Scotland, so he's a lord.
Lord Liebarger?
He has I gave him a sheet.
Office,
it's Lord Daniel Liebarger. Thank you for being at my wedding.
Can we call Annie Lady Liebarger then?
You can. By marriage only, though.
She does not get any say in the land.
So
you should go visit. Let me know if you ever visit that one.
I want to.
I Googled it. Is it a meter over there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So part of this episode what we're doing is we're like bringing in other voices, chatting with people. So I appreciate your story. Like you're a great friend. I also think like I didn't realize this. Like knowing you personally, it's like I didn't make the connection. Like, oh, you guys have very similar stories.
Yeah, for real.
Cool. Nice.
But
wild.
I appreciate you, man. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to swap your mic with Maddie because Maddie's going to come and join us now.
All right.
But we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah.
Chris, so nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you too. Keep it on. Keep on.
Thank you.
Need more. We need more people deconstructing.
Thanks, brother. So
that was so lovely.
Yeah. So what do you think of Chris? Like,
freaking love Chris. That just like everything he said, I was like, yeah, and like his experience of like preaching, being honest about his doubts just felt so similar to my own experience of just like people are compelled, even if you're honest that you're not sure.
Yeah.
And people aren't compelled by sales pitches.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought the data thing was interesting too, right? Because you can like data overload people and it's like it doesn't actually do any convincing, right? Data doesn't actually lead that far. So we got a new person coming on. We got Maddie Denton. Come and join us, Maddie.
What's up, everybody?
I talked about Maddie's birthday party on the pod.
Yeah.
Maddie, it was so much fun.
It was so, and we hadn't met before, but I was like, "What's up, girl? I'm at your birthday party,"
and it was great. It was fabulous.
So for people that didn't listen to that episode, or maybe have never met you,
tell us every detail of your birthday party.
Yeah. Who are you? Why was your birthday party fun? And what do you think about deconstruction?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I'm gonna immediately forget all those questions.
Right, I love it.
Who am I? My name is Maddie Denton. I serve as one of the pastors at The Gathering, which is a church in St. Louis. I started their young adult ministry, Third Place. And I'm in the process of forming that out. And then I'm also helping them start a new site in Midtown, which is like around downtown in St. Louis. I have been in young adult ministry, campus ministry, starting new things, new services for most of my career.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun.
You're kind of like the stereotypical like starter in church. I'm surprised you haven't like planted your own like church because like I feel like everywhere you've been, you started like brand new things everywhere you've gone.
We're trying. Yeah. We're getting there. I think part of my love for starting new things is I'm an Enneagram 8 and I'm very stubborn. And so
that came across weirder when I said I am also one.
That was a lot.
Yeah, it's obvious.
When someone says you're an Enneagram 8, that usually just means you're abrasive. I feel like
someone just told me downstairs that I was a kind Enneagram 8, and I was like, I appreciate that.
I think that's healthy.
How they're misunderstood.
I think that's okay. But I do think there is something to that, like I don't see the spaces that I want to be in or that my friends want to be in, so I'm just going to make them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that I think is how it keeps starting stuff as I get in a place and I'm like, we need actually this. And
which is, I think, the cool thing about what you're doing specifically with Third Place. Mm-hmm. And so, like, do folks in that, like, and maybe you could explain more what that is if someone doesn't know, because maybe people are listening and they want to check it out. But, like, is deconstruction a part of the conversation of people that are engaging in Third Space? Yeah,
it's a huge part of that conversation. So Third Place is kind of, the name is like a play on a sociology term called third spaces.
Yeah.
Which don't really exist anymore, which is part of the like conflict of trying to figure out how to meet people and be in community as a young person. But there are these places that get built into the city that aren't work, they're not church, they're not home, where people can come in, exchange ideas. There's like a leveling of power dynamic, and they're designed for communities to connect to one another. That's like the point of them. And so you see them, for example, in Midtown in St. Louis, they're building that out with like the Foundry and the Armory. And they just announced that they're going to do something else in a building like right next to the Armory. Yeah. And they're creating environments for people to connect to one another. So that's kind of the goal of Third Place, is to recreate spaces like that and to engage in those spaces.
And your birthday party was at the Armory.
It was. You're
practicing what you preach.
You are living the Third Space life.
You can find them. I'm all about it. But it's because it's like centered around conversation. And so like, I think when we talk about deconstruction, which so many feelings about, can't wait to talk about it. Those spaces are really important because people need a place where they feel safe enough to share an idea and not feel like anyone has a better idea than them, or you're like somehow going to be like seen as less than or belittled for whatever reason for where you are in your process. Like there are environments where everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, well, you're the OG, at least Missouri conference of the Methodist Church Deconstruction Podcast. So the Oh God Pod is ranked as one of the top deconstruction pods if you Google it. You guys still come on there.
Reeves, are you hearing this? No. We gotta bring the pod back. We apparently
maybe don't bring the pod back, so we don't need that competition.
Apparently, we're still doing really well.
You're ranked as a high podcast for deconstruction. Yeah,
I know. We got to figure that out. I do too. We haven't totally given up on it yet. We just haven't figured out what it looks like. Yeah. Anyway, that's awesome.
I just haven't really been checking it.
Yeah, I haven't either. It's been kind of
my students, I feel like every once in a while they'll ask about it.
Yeah. We'll figure that out. Anyway.
So, but you kind of like, you jumped into this early, but was deconstruction a part of that? Or was it just like you guys were deconstructing or people around you were, and so it was like a flow? Like, what started that podcast? Because I feel like you guys reached a lot of people and it grew fast. In that regard, like, was deconstruction at the core of it?
I think so. But really, I think it was more like it was a space to give permission to look at things in a new way, which I think is what deconstruction is at its best. It's just permission giving to say, like, I don't know if I vibe with this, but there might be another way that I can look at it. I think that like the idea of deconstructing sometimes gets conflicted with like deconversion. So there's this idea that like, if you ask a lot of questions and you unpack your faith and you try to figure out how to put it together, that's the same thing as saying like, this is no longer for me. I'm not a part of this faith anymore. And one of the things that I think Reeves and I both recognize is like, there's a lot of people who are wrestling with their faith that want to be in the faith. So let's create space for them to do that without feeling like that means somehow that you've abandoned this tradition that means so much to you. Like there's a
Yeah.
way to do both of them.
I dig it.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I think what's interesting you said that is because I feel like when we started the pod, that's like exactly what I said, and then I low-key kind of deconverted, and then I was like, okay, well now I just like kind of went back on what I was saying, which is that it doesn't have to mean deconversion, and I just think like sometimes it does, and that doesn't mean it ends there,
Right.
but I think sometimes it's like part of it. Maybe sometimes it's like the end for some people, but it's just like interesting because I just feel like I said like the same thing in the early episodes, and then just went on this whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's similar to what you just said with Chris, right? Like when you were preaching or when he's preaching, people are like, oh, I hear my story and her story. Like,
Yeah.
I think what I found to be valuable and other people that listen, but also just know you, is like, there's not a lot of pretense about your journey. You're like, I'm where I'm at, right? And you don't do a lot of posturing. And it's like, I think that is accessible to a lot of people to be like, hey, there's someone that's talking about their faith, a pastor and a comedian doing. So, but I think it's great.
Another
like,
deconstruction inside joke. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, but I think like you raise a point that I think is interesting too of that part of like my own deconstruction and reconstruction has been expanding what it means to be like a faithful person.
Absolutely.
And I think like that's a big difference too. Like just because you don't adhere to a particular practice or like claim a certain thing doesn't mean that you're not a faithful person.
Yeah.
You're just doing it in your own, like you're living into what feels real to you in this moment. And I think that God, whatever that is for you, is so much bigger than the box that we like stick whatever it is in.
I love that. I remember there's a clip that we put on TikTok where I said like, I feel like I don't really engage with God right now. And then you said like the God that you used to know. And someone commented like, you just threw her a lifeline. She's just a godless heretic or something. And I was like, okay. But I think that that is true is that like, I think in a very, how I would have thought about deconversion, I would look at my journey and be like, oh my gosh, Emily just like fell off the rails, deconverted.
Yeah.
But like, I think we would both agree that like in my journey, which is far from over, I never really like wasn't faithful or wasn't like trying to figure something out. Like otherwise I would have stopped the pod.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of confusion around what actually happens in the process, right? And I think, like people give a lot of shit to people that are going through the journey and like, oh, you're not faithful, you're not this, you're not that, right? And it's like I think you were doing harder work than most people that would call themselves deeply devoted followers of Jesus were doing, which I think is really interesting.
And that's that's what I think it's Miroslav Volf that says like the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And so like if you're feeling angry and frustrated, that shows like a deep care and passion for it. If you're just like, who cares? You probably don't have a podcast about it and you probably just like don't think about it.
Yeah.
But like, the opposite of love is not hate. It's not anger. It's not frustration. Like to me, that is part of the process of love and relationship is being in the hard parts.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we, because we're recording in a different place, we have a limited amount of time based on the battery life of our camera. So I want to ask you a final question before we swap you out. You said, what did you say a second ago? Like who God is to you? That you said, who is God to you? I would be interested to know for you. Like if you were to decide that, like what does that mean to you?
And you have limited
5
time on
words
your
or less.
camera?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, you only get
gosh.
30 seconds too. No, I'm just kidding.
I think that for me, in my own deconstruction process, I struggled a lot in the first half of my faith journey because I felt like my relationship to God and how I experienced God had to look the way that everyone else's experience looked. So I hated trying to find time to pray because I was like, none of this works. I don't like journaling. I can't like sit down long enough to do some of this. I like struggled to figure out where God is in other people. Like I just like had a really hard time. And then I think as of recently, I've started to see this shift for where the emphasis on my faith has been placed on my relationship to spirit. And not just spirit within like shared Christian language, but like my connection to the earth and the way that I am like mindful about the way that I engage with the things around me. The way that I connect to other people, the way that I like explore other spiritual practices to then implement into my own Christian practice. Like that's been really cool. So I think God for me has been really rooted in my own like self-healing, my own self-trust, the way that I care for the people in my life, the way that those people care for me, in giving myself permission to connect with the world around me in a different kind of way.
Yeah,
It's been really fun.
I dig it.
I think
Yeah.
that's so dope. And honestly, I didn't really expect or even know you were allowed to say that as like a Christian pastor. Like, I think it's super cool that you are a leader in a Christian space and yet willing to dive into and like create a tapestry of what connecting to God or spirit looks like to you, even with different tools. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on. Will you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Will you swap your mic with Reeves
I will.
if she wants to come on? The
Heck
person
yeah.
was just talking off screen, now gets to come on screen. So while you do that, we'll chat a little bit and you guys can swap it out. But thank you for
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
How would you answer that question? Like, who is God
Who's
to
God
you?
to you? I feel like God is so, this is where I'm at right now. I feel like I say that all the
Yeah.
time. I feel like right now God feels so big and so vast and so confusing that I try to like focus on certain aspects of who God is in different periods of my life. And hopefully at the end of the day, we'll create like a big, like almost like you're like looking at one puzzle piece and really studying it and you're not seeing the full thing yet. But I would say
Yeah.
like right now, I've just been reflecting a lot about like the idea of the like divine feminine or like the genderlessness of God, because I think that that's something that you say a lot on the pod is that like you're like you use he him pronouns for God always,
Yeah.
and even though you're like I don't know what I think, you
Yeah.
know, but and so I've just like been challenging myself in that, and like right now I feel like I'm trying to connect with like the divine feminine and that God is not like just like stringently a man, and I think that that's helping me connect with.
You had 24 years of the Presbyterian dude God, so you're trying to like break out
Right.
of that.
And so I think like I don't think I have an answer right now, but I think did the puzzle thing make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, very much.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.